What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily. So with the holiday hype behind us and no new iPhones coming out anytime soon, now might just be one of the best times of the year to get a great deal on a new to you iPhone. This video is geared towards folks who don't want to spend more than $1,000 on the latest iPhone 14s and instead want just a great deal on something a little older, but that still has plenty of life left in it. Prices for these older iPhones are going to be pretty stable across the board right now, so you won't suffer from any buyer's remorse or FOMO. And there are tons of gently used and refurbished devices available from Amazon, Swappa, eBay, and other places, especially now that everyone seems to have traded in or sold their previous iPhones and grabbed one of the new ones. So in this video, I'm going to go over what I think are the best iPhones to buy right now for under $500, which is more or less half price for an iPhone nowadays. And all these iPhones support the latest iOS 16 software update and, in my opinion, likely will receive a few more major software updates from Apple in the years to come. Before we get into all that though, I do want to take just a quick second to thank the folks at UGREEN for sponsoring this video. I recently added UGREEN's DigiNest 65-watt charging station to my desk setup, and honestly, this is one of the best charging hubs I've used to keep all of my stuff powered up. This is a 7-port charging hub / power strip. You've got 2 USB-C power delivery ports alongside 2 USB-A ports, and then all around this power cube, you'll find 3 more full-size AC power plugs. The ports up front offer a combined 65 watts of charging. A single USB-C device plugged in, like an M2 MacBook Air, could utilize all 65 watts and charge up to 100% in 90 minutes. And with 4 devices plugged in, like a laptop, an iPhone, an iPad, and some earbuds, you'll get 30 and 20 watts out of the USB-Cs and 15 watts from the USB-As. It's powered by the GAN 3 chip, so it charges quickly but won't overload or overheat anything. It also keeps me organized with easy access to plugs and outlets right at my fingertips. Check out UGREEN's DigiNest 65-watt charging station at the link in the video description below. And thanks so much again to UGREEN for sponsoring this video. Okay, so first up, if you just want the best overall sub $500 iPhone, my pick would be the iPhone 11 Pro Max. On Amazon right now, you can get this guy renewed for technically $504, but there are a couple of third-party listings for $489. But even a tad over budget, this phone is worth every penny. The 11 Pro Max launched in the fall of 2019 for $1,100. It was the first time Apple slapped on that Pro distinction for one of their phones, and with it, you got some great features, like a stainless steel frame and frosted glass build, beautiful Super Retina XDR OLED display, and the first Pro camera setup that I think still holds up quite well. Best of all, Apple hasn't changed the design of the iPhone much over the last few years, so no one can really tell what this phone is or how old it might be. But regardless of that, I still think Apple will support the 11 Pro Max with major software updates for years to come. So it'll continue to feel like a new or at least current device. And by the way, people still say this phone had the best battery life of any iPhone ever, so that might be one more reason to consider it. Now, the Pro Max, I realize, is a pretty big device. Its 6.5-inch form factor certainly isn't for everyone, so you could also just opt for the standard-sized iPhone 11 Pro. That's even cheaper, like $430, and you get all the same great features as the Max anyway. Overall, Apple's iPhone 11 Pros are far and away the best option if you want an iPhone on a budget. I realize it's still a good chunk of change to fork over for a phone, especially one that's a little older, but for half of its original launch price, considering everything this phone offers, and since Apple should still support it at least for a few more years, I'd say this is a great buy if you need a phone and something to certainly keep for a while if you still have one. If you'd rather get something slightly newer, the regular iPhone 12 is now heavily discounted. Apple actually still sells this device new on their website, starting at $600, but Amazon Renewed comes through again with listings for $504. Remember, not too long ago, the iPhone 12 was selling for some $800. Apple raised the price for this phone when they launched the 12 mini alongside it. Now, just 2 short years later, you can snag it for like 30% off. And the iPhone 12, if we're being totally honest, isn't even that different from the newest iPhone 14. The design and form factor is identical. You get a similar Super Retina XDR OLED display that's not as bright as the newest iPhone 14, but still looks great, and it's the same resolution. The camera specs are super similar, and the A14 Bionic processor that powers this iPhone 12 is only one notch below the A15 processor in the latest iPhone 14. Remember, Apple didn't upgrade the processor for the newest iPhone, so to me, the iPhone 12 is like 90% as good as the iPhone 14, thanks to Apple basically not upgrading much on these phones the last few years. And since these specs are so similar, I'm fairly confident that the iPhone 12 will continue to be supported by Apple for like a decade, seriously. This might be the best long-term investment on the list for sure. Any way you want to look at it, the iPhone 12 now being available for $500-ish is an absolute steal. Now, my next pick might be a little controversial, but hear me out, I think I can probably convince you. The iPhone 13 mini is now available for a smidge under $500, and since Apple seemingly is done with mini iPhones now, it's safe to say that this is not just a great deal in general, but also your only real option now if you want a small device. Now, reasons 1, 2, and 3 for opting for the iPhone 13 mini really boils down to the specs. This is a phone that's technically a year-old device, but compared to the iPhone 14 line, nearly everything is the same. Same processor, same display specs, similar camera features. Like I mentioned already, the iPhone 14 was barely upgraded at all, so opting for anything in the iPhone 13 line like this one isn't going to cause you to miss out. And this small 5.4-inch form factor seems to have been discontinued, at least for now. So if you want something smaller than the standard issue iPhone, this is your one and only option. The controversial part of suggesting the iPhone 13 mini is of course the battery life concern, though in my experience with this phone, compared to the 12 mini, the 13 mini sees some noticeable battery improvements, so I don't think that's as big of a deal. All in all, this is probably more of a unique device for a very specific kind of iPhone user, but if you've been holding out or just want to move to something small, but couldn't justify the $700 plus price point this phone originally sold at, now is a great time to finally get one. Last but not least, if you just need an iPhone, any iPhone that's still current and supported by Apple, the iPhone XS and XS Max are your answers there. These phones, even though they launched in the fall of 2018, received the latest iOS 16 software updates, and I would say outside the camera setups, they're still pretty good phones in their own right. You can grab an iPhone XS from Amazon Renewed for like $230. The XS Max sells for a little bit more, like $270-ish, and these phones are still super premium and offer features like their Super Retina OLED displays that aren't that far off from what's on current iPhones today. Even the processor and software experience I think don't hinder these phones much, and with Apple actually getting in trouble a couple years back for literally throttling their older devices and forcing people to upgrade, I don't think we'll see anything that extreme anymore. The downside with opting for a XS now is that Apple likely won't support them for too much longer, but even if you stop getting the major iOS updates, I still think you can get a number of years out of this phone if you need to. And like I said, honestly, the only missing feature on these phones, compared to the latest and greatest iPhones, is the camera setup. These phones launched well before Apple put 200% of their time and effort into making pictures and videos the sole selling point for the high-end iPhones, but they can still snap a great regular old picture. And overall, for well under $300 now, you can't really go wrong with a XS or XS Max today. So there you go, those are my picks for the best iPhones to buy right now for under $500. I really do think that right now is a great time to buy a new to you iPhone. It might sound weird, but nothing is coming out anytime soon, and Apple doesn't really run any sales or discounts anyway, so prices for everything will remain pretty steady for a little while here. And if you've wanted a different device, but don't care to spend $1,000 for the iPhone 14s, these are all great options. And actually, if you have one of the iPhones I mentioned on the list right now, I hope this was some reassurance that you can probably keep that phone for a little while longer too. You aren't missing out on much. But what do you guys think? Is there a better iPhone option out there that I maybe missed? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys later.